Welcome to the Three Martini Lunch. Grab a stool next to Greg Columbus of Radio America and Jim Garrity of National Review. Three Martinis coming up.
Hey, really glad you're with us for the Thursday edition of the Three Martini Lunch, and we're thrilled to report that Jim Garrity is back from the National Review cruise and some time in Vancouver. And big thanks, of course, to Andy McCarthy and as Stetman, Scott Bertram, Emily Jashinsky, and John Gabriel filling in for Jim while he was out. And Jim, first of all, welcome back. Hopefully you're acclimated. There's a few time zones between here and there. What everyone's waiting for is this moose story that you teased us just a couple days into the trip. It seemed either like you had a comical encounter or you barely survived. So is it a little bit of both or more one than the other?
A little bit of both is a good way of putting it, Greg. It's good to be back. Yes, I'm still on this podcast. It's a sign about how good the guest hosts are, that they're like, yeah, it's a great show with Greg and Andy, and or Greg and Inez and all that. So in addition to the National Review cruise, they had this additional package where they said, if you want to go and tour Denali National Park, you can do that too. And I'm like, okay, how often are we going to be up in Alaska? Might as well do it. Once in a lifetime kind of experience. And the first thing we did is there's a bus tour that takes you like 40 miles. By the way, Denali National Park is huge. And the way over there, my wife's like, ooh, maybe we could climb Denali. And I'm like, you mean like what used to be Mount McKinley? That's the sort of thing where it takes like 35 days to do it. And people die doing that on a regular basis. You know, it's not all that different from climbing Everest. In fact, it's really difficult. So no, honey, we're not going to be managing to do that. We do the bus tour, and it's not that I don't recommend the bus tour, but just recognize that we had a great tour guide. We're driving deep into the wilderness, and it would say, hey, do you see those really tiny white specks on a mountain? Those are Dall sheep. And they thankfully have like a really nice camera to put it up on monitors on the bus, but otherwise, like, it's just white specks over there. Oh, did you see that? That black speck off the distance? That's a golden eagle. Now, it could be that. It could be a crow. It could be anything, I know. One of the animals they showed us is a fox. Now, Greg, I don't know how things are in your corner of Virginia. We have foxes all the time. We were less than overwhelmed by that. So my family and I are like, okay, we got to go and actually just walk into the park. We got to hike some of these trails. We got to actually explore it. Well, we are in it. We go about 2/3 of the way up a trail. It's supposed to be kind of an overlook looking down into this beautiful wilderness. And my younger son says, I got to go to the bathroom. Now, did we tell him to do so before at the visitor center before we left? Yes, we did.
You did. Yep.
Did he do so? No, of course not, because he didn't have to go then. But now we are. And now, of course, we were out in the wilderness. Oh, I should emphasize also that our tour guide on the bus told us that she's had lots of run-ins with bears and she's had lots of run-ins with moose. She is much more worried about moose, and in fact had a moose run in like 2 weeks earlier with her and her dog, and they had to hide in a greenhouse. Because with a bear, apparently you have options. You can try to make yourself very large and intimidate the bear. You can make a lot of noise and try to scare it away. You can even play dead, and generally the bear will just kind of sniff you and then move on. But apparently the advice, if you run into an angry moose, is run and hide. That is the only option you have. No, moose are not carnivorous, but they will stomp you with their hooves. And apparently the time of year we were going in early to mid-June, so bears like to eat moose calves, and all spring long they've been eating them, which puts the moose into a very bad mood, but also makes the bears angry because now by this point the moose are starting to get fast enough to evade the bears. So all the animals in the forest are really angry. And I could just kind of tell from our guide that like bears she felt like she could handle, but like moose genuinely were this, things could go very wrong very quickly. So my younger son's got to do his business. So like, all right, I'm not going to let him go into the woods by himself. I'm going to keep him in sight. Let's go behind a tree. I'm sitting there, not 30 seconds. I can see something. And the ground out there, it's permafrost. So it's very soft, very spongy. It absorbs the sound as you walk. And I look, and like 40 feet away, there is a moose that makes me look small coming this way. According to other people who looked at my pictures, this is a teenage moose, apparently a juvenile delinquent moose. Might have been female. Didn't ask the pronouns. People say, oh, was it angry? Look, I'm not a moose psychologist. It may have been eating its feelings. I don't know. But either way, this was a moose that made me look really small. And now I know because of this bus driver story, like this could go very badly. If this moose is angry and charges, you have to hide behind a tree and just hope for the best. So I asked my wife, you done? This would be a good time to be really finished, with all that stuff. Tell my wife and my older child to all right, guys, move down the path. We go out to the path and we're like, okay, well, this moose is just going to walk away. No, the moose does not walk away. The moose keeps coming down the path closer to us. And all over Denali National Park, the visitor center, there are signs, do not approach moose. Moose are extremely dangerous. By the way, the plural of moose is moose, not meese. Meese is a Reagan attorney general. So we're like, okay, we keep moving further back. And the moose isn't charging, but it certainly is not intimidated by us or bothered by us. And none of these signs say anything. Here's what you should do if the moose keeps following you and just seems to want to get to know you. So we eventually, we better go behind a tree. Let's go into the forest. Well, the mosquitoes ate like they have never eaten before. And of course, the other thing is both my kids said, like, there's mosquitoes landing on each other and they're enjoying swatting each other's faces and all that stuff while we're trying to be very quiet and not disturb or attract the attention of the moose. Eventually, the moose goes away. So we never probably got closer than like 40 feet from it, but that's about as close as I want to get to it. And I cannot emphasize enough, my head is like right around its mouth level probably, and I'm 6'2", to give you a sense of just how big this was. The Jurassic Park moose. This was something. All got together, lived to tell the tale. As I wrote to the Washington Post, the headline was "The moose did not eat my family." So some people treated it as breaking news. A lot of people point out that was actually it's in the opinion section. So my opinion is that the moose did not eat my family. Fact checkers have not inspected that yet. Otherwise, great trip. Hey, everybody should go to Alaska. It's beautiful, wonderful. Just keep distance from the moose.
Wow. Yeah, moose are huge. They brought some into the UP back when I was a kid, and I think they're still doing okay up there, but they are massive, massive creatures. And so even the delinquent juvenile moose are not to be trifled with. Glad you lived to tell the tale. So, all right. Well, let's talk about our good martini today. And for that, we go to the Free Beacon. And once again, a shattered narrative in the Middle East, which is, I think, good on all fronts here, Jim. Adam Credo, who does an excellent job of national security reporting over at the Free Beacon, not Greedo, who got into that dust-up with Han Solo and the whole debate about who shot first. But Adam Credo, he writes, new evidence indicates that contrary to claims by top U.S. officials and international media, the Gaza Strip is not on the precipice of a widespread famine that Western experts claimed would endanger millions of innocent Palestinians. Quote, famine is imminent in northern Gaza. The Integrated Food Security Phase Classification, a network of Western governments, the UN, and nonprofit groups warned in March, prompting unfounded accusations that Israel is using starvation as a war tactic. And as soon as that report came out, it was amplified by many different outlets, including CNN, the New York Times, Politico, etc. But on Tuesday, the IPC revised its initial assessment, saying that the projected famine in Gaza did not come to fruition in May. Quote, the available evidence does not indicate that famine is currently ongoing, the organization said in its latest report, which notes that Israel has significantly increased aid and that conditions as a whole in Gaza have drastically improved. And so, Jim, I guess we built that ill-fated pier for almost nothing now. But, and of course, Israel dumping in tons of humanitarian aid to its adversary. Gosh, they're just so horrible. What do you make of this, what seemed to be this universal assumption that thousands upon thousands of people were about to die from starvation, and now we get the whole, actually it wasn't. Never mind.
Greg, you beat me to one of my punchlines, which was going to be, the Gaza pier worked! Look at it. It worked miracles. A great miracle happened here. On the one hand, this is genuinely good news, and you would like to think that most reporters in the West would take a lesson from this, which is that Gaza authorities are not reliable sources and that they are always inclined to exaggerate, in some cases wildly exaggerate, the risk to civilians and the negative effects of an ongoing Israeli military operation, which are not, they're bad, don't get me wrong. Anytime you're fighting a war, it's going to have serious consequences for the civilians in the area. But that this was not necessarily, some deliberate campaign of genocide, blah, 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 all that we saw. Now, and regarding that pier there, it turns out that it can't handle 3-foot swells, which are really common in the Eastern Mediterranean, that part of the Gaza Strip. The last report that I saw was that now they're really rolling after the last storm passed. They reset it up. They have 2 tugboats on each side helping keep it in position. And the stuff is rolling down off that pier and just sitting there because they aren't running the trucks anymore. Because the trucks aren't safe, because every time they ran the trucks, all kinds of people would crowd around the trucks and start stealing them and start taking it off. And there's no guarantee that the food aid actually got to the people who were most at risk of starvation. But I think it's a demonstration that A, the risk of starvation was never quite as bad as the panic mongers wanted to make it sound. B, that there was a genuine effort to try to make sure that famine did not occur. And as you mentioned, both the Israelis and the U.S. through the use of this pier have done what they can to look. We don't want to see people starve. We want to see Hamas get punished. Doesn't mean that we want to use starvation as a weapon of war. There's no indication that they are using starvation as a weapon of war. And something that we were told was terrible and imminent did not come to pass. Everything else that's going wrong in the Middle East, that is a good thing. And we should celebrate the wins where we can get them, particularly in this exceptionally troubled corner of the world.
No, exactly. Yeah, finding out that there is no famine is definitely good news. And it once again shows that the demonization of Israel on the humanitarian front is not well-founded. If you go back through wars in our history, I'm pretty sure we didn't drop tons and tons of relief to people we were still fighting against. But it seems to be the expectation now, and they're actually doing it, but they'll still be the bad guy, I'm sure, in most of the assessments here. So just amazing. So I guess we'll see what the next bogus talking point is when it comes out of the Middle East. All right, Jim, on to our bad martini now, and we're still talking about the Middle East to some extent here. But it's in reaction to yesterday's good martini, which is the decisive defeat of New York Democratic Congressman Jamaal Bowman, losing by nearly 20 points to his challenger, George Latimer. As John Gabriel and I said yesterday, if there was any doubt about Bowman's fate, that rally, quote unquote, with AOC doing something close to dancing, I guess, and Jamaal Bowman's anti-Semitic rant probably sealed the deal against him, probably was going to lose anyway. In the 24 hours, or now coming up on about 36 hours since he was officially defeated, has Jamaal Bowman been doing some serious soul searching? Has he been reflective on how his anti-Semitic rhetoric clearly was a major factor in costing him this seat? Is he rethinking how to assess what's happening in the Middle East? Of course not. Also, the Free Beacon, after losing his primary campaign against George Latimer by nearly 20 points, squad member Jamaal Bowman claimed a, quote, super PAC of dark money, a reference to the American-Israel Public Affairs Committee spent millions of dollars to, quote, brainwash people into voting against him. Quote, we should be outraged when a super PAC of dark money can spend $20 million to brainwash people into believing something that isn't true, Bowman said during his Tuesday night concession speech. Unfortunately, some so-called Democrats are aligning themselves with radical, racist, right-wing Republicans. He's routinely accused Israel of being an apartheid state and called reports of rapes and child murders by Hamas propaganda and lies. And so, I mean, ads are designed to get you to think a certain way about candidates. I don't think it's brainwashing, Jim. People are free to do their homework. But long before AIPAC dumped any money into this race, Jamaal Bowman was in deep, deep trouble in this contest. So I guess it's totally on brand for him to find his typical scapegoat here.
Yeah, there are actually a couple unanswered questions about that primary that I'm still looking for the answer. Greg, I don't know if you heard. At the Latimer victory party, did they play Nicki Minaj's Pound the Alarm? Because it just seems like the right music there. No, out of all the members of the squad, I don't like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, but I can kind of see why she won that surprise victory in the Democratic primary a few years ago, and I can see why she is a social media star, right? She is fired up, she is charismatic, she kind of knows how to attract attention. Whether she can be an effective legislator is a very different story. But with Bowman, it's kind of like, how does this guy use a phone? Never mind. How did this guy become a high school principal? Actually, scratch that. How did this guy get out of high school? Because most of us can figure out how a fire alarm works. And his claim is that I have no idea how I did it. I thought you pulled the fire alarm to open the door. Now all of us knew he was lying. All of us knew that he had pulled the fire alarm in order to delay the vote back then. And pleading ignorance was his defense. He really got off with a slap on the wrist. It really was a minimal consequence there. And so out of the squad, Bowman stands out as the dumb one. Now think about what you have to do to earn that title. So certainly not crying any tears over this. Interestingly, there is this, I suppose you could say the dynamic works both ways, but I think there's a more prestigious and lucrative path. That if you are a loser in politics, then what you do is you say, nobody could handle the truth I was telling. The sinister power, the machine, the establishment wouldn't let. It's not that I'm dumb as a box of hammers. Because he kept saying, we're going to show bleeping and bleep the South Bronx. His district is not the South Bronx. Know what your district is really one of the basics if you want to run for the House. And I know they change once a decade or so, but most people can keep up with them. And they make maps. It's not written in Sanskrit, in some ancient temple. You need to uncover any of this, like Indiana Jones or something. You could look at the map and say, oh, I don't represent the South Bronx. I should not run around saying I'm going to show them. And he took off he showed off his guns, and it was kind of like watching a guy melt down. But at the same time, I've heard many people theorize he knew he was going to lose. He was 17 points down before the AIPAC money started rolling in, and was 17 points down with the AIPAC money, which doesn't say a lot about AIPAC money, but I also can't begrudge AIPAC for saying, oh, this guy's going down. We're going in to make sure everybody knows we took this guy down, right? We're going to run in charge of the parade. But Bowman had proven himself to be a sideshow freak. He had proven himself to be a circus, that he was not a serious legislator. And certain New York districts are going to be fine with that, AOC. And certain districts are not going to be okay with that. And we're like, no, we actually would like somebody serious. Oh, by the way, some portion of this district is Jewish, and some portion of this district does not like a congressman who runs around insisting that Israel's the root of all evil. This is not rocket science. To understand this is you got to understand how a fire alarm works. So most people get it, but not the congressman. And the other thing is also he's only two-termer, which means he's not getting a pension. He's not. Think about what you have to do to lose your seat as a New York congressional Democrat. Anthony Weiner, this guy. Off the top of my head, the tickler, the guy who, beginning of the Obama, you really got to be on the outer fringe of the freak show to lose your seat as a New York Democrat. Usually you're guaranteed 20 years. So there's kind of this recognition that he's not going to have that traditional career path. And now he's got to go for the hard left gravy train. And he's got to paint himself as a victim of the all-powerful Jewish lobby and all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, as we've seen in recent months, that there's plenty of people in America who will support candidates like that and speakers like that. He'll probably get a teaching gig somewhere. He'll probably get a book deal somewhere. How the Jews got me, booga, 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 all that kind of stuff. But I think, it's a good riddance to him, but also it's kind of a frustrating set of affairs that he gets to take his own incompetence and his own defeat and cite that as evidence of the sinister powers that are out to get him.
Yeah, that's sadly pretty typical now in our politics. He won that seat by defeating Eliot Engel in a primary. And for those who remember Eliot Engel, and John Gabriel and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, he was a very strong advocate for Israel. So he got elected time after time after time. And even if the boundaries of the district change to some extent, you got a lot of people there who, support that position. And for Jamaal Bowman to go that far off the rails. He shouldn't have done it regardless of the makeup of his district, obviously, but talk about not being able to read the room. Not only is it rare for an incumbent to lose, but to lose by almost 20 points. Wow.
That's what moves it from merely being wrong to being wrong and dumb.
That's right.
Which is doubly wrong when you think about it.
Yeah, so now we got to figure out who's the new dumbest member of the squad. So it's not an easy competition.
Cori Bush, your days are numbered.
Yeah, she could be next. She could be next. All right, Jim, on to our Crazy Martini now, and obviously we'll have a lot more to say about this tomorrow, but tonight is the first presidential debate between Presidents Biden and Trump. Yes, it's in June, before convention season. I have to think that's a first for a general election debate. We'll see what happens tonight with the moderators. There's been a lot of discussion about whether, Bash and Tapper will be advocating for Biden. Who knows about that? The other issue is the microphones and being muted. That's in response to that first debate from 4 years ago. There was a lot of crosstalk, of course. And so I don't know exactly what to expect. I think the muting helps Trump a little bit because then Biden's got to use his full time and he can't benefit by Trump bailing him out by interjecting himself. And so the longer Biden has to talk, I think the more that's trouble for him. But I'm not sure what happens after their initial back and forth is done. Is there some interaction with both mics on? I don't know. As you point out, there's probably not going to be a lot of minds changed tonight, given how locked in most of the bases are. But what are you most looking forward to?
Well, I was going to say, for this to be our Crazy Martini, I think the single craziest aspect of it is that there's going to be commercial breaks. People don't realize that almost every previous 90-minute presidential debate has been 90 minutes straight. And, networks can sell campaign commercials, commercial time before and in the post-game show, so to speak. But, it's 90 minutes. And if from the moment this deal was announced, I thought this was actually a bad deal for Trump. Yeah, it starts at 9 p.m. Eastern. And the idea of Biden getting tired as the night goes on is certainly a possibility. But you assume that they're going to be about 30 minutes in and then about an hour in. Maybe it won't make a huge difference. We'll see how it shakes out. But, if you think about it, If you're Biden, and let's assume the philosophy of the Biden campaign is we want to keep Biden off stage as much as possible. Well, you do one as early as possible in the cycle, and then you do one on September 10th, right before the 9/11 anniversary. I think it's right around when NFL season kicks off. We'll see. Maybe the ratings for that one will be huge. But Biden may well say that's all the debates we're doing. We only did 2 debates last time because Trump caught COVID. And, so if we got a total of 3 hours last time, we're going to get less than 3 hours, depending. I assume these commercial breaks are going to be 3 minutes, 4 minutes. So I think Biden may have dodged a metaphorical bullet here and may have a little bit of an easier time with those little breaks in between. Apparently, they can't consult with staff or anything like that. But if you're Trump and your goal was to wear down Biden, I think these breaks are not a good one. There was also a report, by the way, that apparently as of this recording, they're still going to be standing at podiums the whole time. There was a report that the Biden team wanted them seated at a table. Then they quickly denied, oh, no, we don't want to do that. So we'll see how this shakes out. The answer format is 2 minutes to the candidate, 1 minute for rebuttal, 1 minute to respond to the rebuttal. We'll see how that shakes out. I was rereading the transcripts of the 2020 debate, and boy, there was some word salad from both these guys. But Biden's was, because like Kristen Welker would say, with specifics. And Biden would be like, well, we got to get the stuff done. That's not specifics, Mr. Vice President. So we will see. Again, as I wrote in today's Morning Jolt, I think the debate is getting overhyped. Politico said this is the most important night of the cycle. Maybe. I don't think there are that many people who are not just undecided, but like dislodgeable. I don't think anyone's going to be surprised. 99% of the Trump, unless something shocking happens, unless Biden really freezes up there, or he starts talking with Francois Mitterrand and Helmut Kohl, both of whom died years ago, you're probably going to have, Trump fans saying, oh, my God did great, and Biden fans, oh, my goodness, Biden was so youthful and energetic. Think about how he remembered a whole 2 or 3 names. The RFK fans will say it's terrible that he and the brainworm were not allowed to participate. Everybody's going to have a very predictable response to this. So unless something really shocking happens, I think everybody's going to come out thinking their guy won. I don't think it'll be a huge dramatic transition. Maybe the viewership will be high, in part because it's going to be on every single channel, not just CNN. It's going to be simulcast on, I think, all the major networks. I think Fox has Bolivia versus Colombia in the Copacabana Cup or Copa America. So if you can't stand the debate, that is what to watch tonight. Ratings will be high, but it's the only thing that's on tonight. So we'll see what happens. It's conceivable we get something really dramatic, but my suspicion is everybody comes out and says their guy did great and everything, and it's not some giant. Also, it's like we're a week away from like 4th of July weekend. I just don't think people are necessarily politically charged and really tuned in. But I've been on a cruise for a week and dodging moose. So what do I know?
Yeah, I think Republicans made a mistake. Trump's tried to rectify this the last couple of days and try to raise the expectations for Biden. But as soon as the debate was announced, everybody's saying, oh, well, Biden's going to stumble all over himself. He's not going to be able to complete sentences. And who knows what will happen as the night goes on. But the smart thing would have been to raise expectations that he's got to answer for all these terrible policies. And instead, it's like, as long as he doesn't drool or fall asleep, he's probably going to come out with good reviews.
My colleagues pointed out that if you're looking for a reason to expect Biden to do badly, think about how often we see Biden either with a teleprompter, reading off note cards, or with the questions and a note card in his hand when he calls on reporters ahead of time. That he's got some idea of what to say. So we kind of know what questions we're going to get tonight. There'll be something on inflation. There'll be something, shrinkflation, these greedy corporations and all that stuff. We'll get something on the border. Mm-hmm. We'll probably get something. Biden's probably going to bring up Trump's conviction. Trump's going to probably bring up Hunter Biden's conviction. The one thing I'm hoping for, and this is going to turn into a corner post in the very near future, I hope we don't get a cutesy question, considering how limited the time is with these candidates. I don't need a what do you respect about your opponent, or I don't think either Tapper or Bash are the kind who would say to do a Barbara Walters, if you were a twee, what kind of twee would you be? But we get very limited time with these guys, and these guys have dodged a lot of questions on the debt, on entitlements, on what specifically they would be doing to bring down inflation, things like that. So like that, I think there's no shortage of like really hard-hitting, tough questions on policy. I don't think we need any of the lighter, fluffier ones, particularly when there's only 2 debates scheduled.
No, I think that's right. And I do hope there is some opportunity for interaction back and forth in that last minute of each question. So just having statement, statement would be a little bit too stiff, I think. So we'll see how CNN handles that. But a lot to look forward to tonight. We'll talk about that tomorrow. I'm sure we'll have some big Supreme Court decisions tomorrow morning. So make sure you're here. Jim, welcome back. See you then.
See you tomorrow, Greg.
Jim Garrity, National Review. I'm Greg Corombos of Radio America. Thanks so much for being with us today. Please be sure to subscribe to our podcast if you don't already, and tell your friends about us as well. Thanks for your 5-star ratings and your kind reviews. Please keep those coming. Get us on your home devices. All you have to say is play 3 Martini Lunch Podcast. Follow us both on X. He's at Jim Garrity. I'm at Dateline_DC. Have a terrific Thursday, and join us again on Friday for the next 3 Martini Lunch.